Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I have a super awesome guest here today. Everybody, please say hello to BlackHartKnight. Welcome, Blackheart.
Thank you for having me, and appreciate you taking time to listen to my story at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. When you
Because
emailed me, I had never heard of this story that we're about to talk about before. You guys are going to be really interested in it. It's crazy.
I will say this, it is a lesson in who you trust with your children as far as babysitters go.
Absolutely nobody. I trust
Mm.
no one with my children. 0 people. Before we get into that, though, let me say hello to a few people in the chat. I see that Erica did make a little donation. Erica, thank you so much for the donation, and you will be the first name to go in next month's drawing. Before we do that, this month's drawing, so as you know, I do a drawing every month. This month, it's for the retro Overruled coffee mug. This one is no longer in print. I have one extra, and I will send it to whoever's name I draw right now. That was not the correct tense to say that in, but you all know what I mean. So yeah, it is the Overruled True Crime with Katie Z coffee mug. You guys let me know what I should order for you guys next month, by the way, what you guys want. I just happen to have an extra one of these. So here's all the names. Remember, you did not have to donate to be entered in this. As a matter of fact, Blackheart Knight, you are automatically entered into next month's because anybody who comes up on stream
Awesome.
with me gets an entry. So we will mix them around and I will pull one. And let's, oh, 2 came out. Maybe I need to get 2 prizes because I'll figure something else out. Number 1 is Waffle Salter. So he will get the mug. And since another one came out, I do have a Christmas ornament as well here at the house. Here, I'll show you guys.
Mm. I still need
I
to go to pick up my Christmas tree.
Let me pull up the Christmas ornament so you guys can see what I'm talking about. There it is. I have one of these Christmas ornaments here as well. So the person who gets that is Parson or Parsons. Will get that. So number 2 is behind the scenes making notes. Waffle Salter gets the mug, and Parson, congratulations. You get the Christmas ornament. I'm sure it will look lovely on your Christmas tree this year. Now that that's out of the way, all of these names are going in the trash, and we're starting over with Erica's name as first in there, and Major Victory just donated as well. So you get an entry as well. I should have had my trash can hand. They're just all over the place. I just spilled them everywhere. And don't forget when you donate on over here on the Katie Z channel, Xena gets a milk bone each and every time. She saw the donations coming through. Did you see her perking up over there?
Oh, yeah.
So let's give her a couple milk bones and then we will get into it. Thank you very much, Erica and Major Victory. We have that in the way. I'm just a little discombobulated today, Blackheart. Let's get her a couple milk bones, though. Unfortunately, the terrorist, Ava, my other dog, is not with us today because she is in the basement with my husband. Because otherwise they just sit here and wrestle the whole time, which is fine. It's very entertaining. But when I'm telling a serious story like the one we're about to get into, it's very distracting. All right, Xena.
Indeed, I'm sure it must be.
Yeah. This is from Erica. Do you want to do a little shake? That's so good of you. And this one, you get some scritches. That's from Major Victory. My dog appreciates you getting her fat. So about a month, probably about a month ago, you emailed me and said that you had a run-in with a serial killer. And I said,
Yeah.
ooh, intriguing. Tell me more.
Well, I will get into that later on. I mean,
Mhm.
if you want to start it up by
Yeah.
really describing who this person is, and then I'll interject myself at certain points, and especially at the point where it comes to where I come in at because, well, the story kinda takes place and whenever I'm an infant, so I really don't remember it, but I was
Yeah.
told this story more than 20 years later, and I ended up confronting my dad about it, where he confirmed the issue, and then at one point, whenever after I found out about it, I asked my coworkers who were old enough to remember this person because I worked in the Blountstown area at
Mhm.
when I was not at that particular time, but where people will be old enough to remember her,
Yeah.
and I can recall this one person who was about 50 years old and had been living in the Blountstown, Mariana area all her life, and I was like, "I got a question for you." And this smile came across her face, and, I was like, "Do you remember the name Christine Falling?" This smile disappeared from her face, and she was like, "Is that heifer still alive?" It's like,
She is.
"Yeah." And I explained my situation, which I had found out about. Like, "Oh, good lord, good thing she didn't get a hold of you."
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about Christine Falling, and here's a picture of her. This is actually a picture from the courtroom, which is a little crazy, that she looks like that. Um, but she was a babysitter. She was a young well, let's start. I mean, where's the best place to start? Always is in the beginning. So let's start at the
Always in the
beginning.
beginning.
So Christine Laverne Slaughter, she was born as. She didn't become a
What a lovely
Falling.
name, Slaughter.
Slaughter, yes, it's like when you have a crook whose last name is Crook or a, serial killer whose last name is Slaughter. It's kinda crazy. So she was born on
Sure the
March
hell it is.
I know. She was born on, March 12th, 1963 to her father's name was Thomas, and he was 65 years old when she was born, and her mother's name was Anne, and Anne was 16 years old. Yes, you heard me correctly. Her father was 65, her mother was 16. What do you think about age differences in, couples? What's too large of an age difference?
I have seen it all across the spectrum. My own
Mhm.
sister, when she was 18 years old, her, first boyfriend, once she reached that age, was in his 50s, and she had a child with him.
Whoa.
Only for him to die of a heart attack a few years after he was born.
Yeah.
And, well, yeah, he was like 55, which was about the same age as our father.
That's yeah,
So,
it's a little creepy, right?
to
A
me, it
little
was a little
creepy.
creepy, but I ended up accepting it. My dad had a hard time with it.
Mhm.
And when she
I
got
bet.
pregnant with him, when she got pregnant, I was the bridge of communication between the two of them because they weren't talking for a while.
Mhm.
And so he decided to do something good for her, bought her some diapers, but they were the cloth diapers. She handed them to me, was like, "Let me know what she says." She was like,
Oh.
"Oh, what a twisted sense of humor she thought he had."
I I always like, I've had this discussion before, actually with a very close
Mhm.
friend of mine, because he thinks that, like, 20-year age difference is fine, as long as the woman is younger, in his opinion. I think 10 years is the cutoff for me. Although, my sister, her husband is 18 years younger than her, so and they're like a perfect couple, like, they
Mhm.
just work so well together, so I think my opinion is changing a little bit over time, just seeing how happy they are, like my sister and
Mm,
her husband, but for a
yeah.
long time, I just 10 for some reason, 10 years was my cutoff of creepiness, you know?
Well, I mean, you see all this Jerry Springer stuff of couples being 50 years apart from each other,
Yeah.
where one of them is 70 something years old and the other one's 20 years old. It's like,
Mhm.
good grief. I mean, there
It
is a limit as far as I'm concerned, but if you're happy, you're happy.
well, and I think also if you are capable of caring for children, like, it's and you're in love and you're, you're doing the right thing, you're caring for your children. That's not the case here. Not at all.
Mhm.
So Christine got off to a rough start. They were, first of all, extremely poor, uh, to where, like, they were just hanging on by a thread, like, not even paycheck to paycheck, like, it was worse than that. At a very young age, Christine was diagnosed with mental issues, air quotes. I couldn't find out exactly what mental issues she was diagnosed with, uh, and back then, they didn't really do a lot of diagnosing of that sort of stuff. They just basically
Hmm.
put her in the slow class and said, "She's got mental issues, so she needs to be in the slow class."
Yeah, if you're talking about special needs,
Mhm.
they really start kicking that off until the '80s, and even then back then, they were misdiagnosing students with all sorts of learning disorders and putting them into classes, into special
Exactly.
ed classes, without
Mhm.
fully understanding what they were doing.
Yeah. She also was diagnosed with epilepsy, which was becomes an issue, a couple of paragraphs later, but, she has a older half sister named Carol and 2 younger brothers named Michael and Earl. Now, Thomas, a 65-year-old dad, denies that Carol, Christine, or Michael were his children. The only one he claims is Earl. And the
Mhm.
reason for this is Anne was kind of a slut. Little bit of a slut, and
Mm,
had, not only that, she had like zero maternal instinct, so she wasn't caring for these kids, and she would just go off and then like come back, like she would go off partying. She was 16 and he's a grown man, like trying to raise a family. And she's a 16-year-old girl and never had a childhood. So she's going off with her friends. She's coming back pregnant. And he just didn't think that the other kids were his. Well, he knew that Carol was not his because she had Carol before Christine, but supposedly Michael and Christine were his children, but he just doesn't claim them.
right.
Thomas would take the children to work with him when Christine, or when Anne, sorry, wouldn't come home, and he was a woodsman. Now, if you're like me, although you're from there and this might be a common job there, but I'm like, what the heck is a woodsman, right?
It still fairly is a fairly, common job to be a logger, in that
Mhm.
area, because it is densely forested still to this
Yeah.
day. I mean, I've had friends who went into the logging industry over there and do pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, you can see from the map here that there's just lots of woods
What's
around here.
what city you're
Uh,
looking at?
Perry, that's where she was born, is
Perry?
Perry. Yep, Perry.
Yeah. Now, if you look at
Um,
Bluntstown, where this my issue took place at, there's
yep,
still, a lot of forest over there.
yeah. So I looked up the job description for woodsman, and it says job description for forest conservation workers under supervision, perform manual labor to develop, maintain, or protect areas such as forested areas, woodlands, wetlands, rangelands through such activities as raising and transporting seedlings, combating insects and pests and other harmful diseases to plant life, building structures to control water erosion, um, leaching of soil, forester aids, seedling pullers, tree planters. Basically, he cared for the forest. That was his job. So he would take the kids
Yeah.
with him to work just to play in the forest while he was, planting seedlings or, building structures to control water erosion or whatever he happened to be doing that day. It's actually, it sounds like a job that I would love. Not gonna lie, I would love just hanging out in the forest all day. That's one of my favorite places to be. It's just in the woods. Unfortunately, Thomas was injured at work and he lost his income. And more importantly, he lost his insurance. And Christine's medication for epilepsy was very expensive, which is why that's an issue if they don't have insurance. So Thomas and Anne get divorced, and Anne decides she can't handle, like, the kids go with the mom as they normally did back then. I think probably even still today, the kids usually go with the mom. just in general, or there's some sort
In
of split,
general, yeah.
yeah, split custody. But in this case, I think it was a bad idea because Anne was very ill equipped to take care of 4 children. And what she ended up doing is just leaving them on a bench somewhere at a shopping center in Perry, Florida. She just like sat him on a bench at a shopping center and just walked the heck away.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, Christine had a really rough start to her life.
What a lovely mom that is.
I couldn't even
Sheesh.
imagine. I My mom is like the best mom in the whole world, and I just could not imagine. And I know this happens to people all the time, but I just could not imagine not having the support of my parents when I was young like that, you know?
Well, I've got a memory of whenever after I had my surgery on the back of my neck, my
Mhm.
mother, me waking up in the middle of the night and seeing my mother sleeping in a chair next to my bed. So,
Yeah.
I mean, at least I had that, but she didn't.
Exactly. Yeah, she didn't have this at all, and it wasn't I from what I can tell, it wasn't that her father did not want to be there for her, more so that he was
Mhm.
the one working and, like, bringing in the income and stuff like that, so he just couldn't
Mhm.
be there, and he like I said, he would take them to work. Now, don't get me wrong, dad is not a great guy, we'll find that out a little bit later too.
No, he's not. Mm.
Not a great guy. Um so what happens is Christine and Carol, the 2 girls, were adopted by the dad, Thomas's cousin, and his wife, Dolly. So that's Dolly and Jeffrey Falling. That's where she gets the name Falling. Christine Falling is, what she's arrested under and in jail under to this day, or prison. I always say it wrong. Prison and jail are 2 different things. I have no idea what happened to the brothers. I tried to research it, but I assume they were probably adopted either by a stranger or by another family member, but they're not mentioned again in any of the research that I could find. A short time after the girls were adopted by Jeffrey and Dolly, Jeffrey Falling was arrested 2 times for molesting Carol, which is the older half sister.
Dude.
That's what, yeah, yeah, not great. um, but the charges were dropped, and here's why. This just drives me nuts. Um, so Dolly, his wife, dropped the charges because she did not want um, Carol to have to go through the testifying in court and things like that. Now, I
Mm.
know for victims, especially of sexual violence, it's difficult to face your accuser or to be in court and testify and all that. But there's so many cases where things like this happen. Women don't wanna testify, or any victim for that matter, don't wanna testify because it's too much for them, and then the person goes on and does the same thing to somebody else. So, anytime that I hear a victim getting up in court to testify, I call that person a hero because you never know how many lives that person saved from either being ruined or killed or whatever the case is, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so after that happened, they obviously take the kids from uh, Jeffrey and Dolly. So Carol and Christine get carted off to Orlando, which is about a 3-hour drive, probably back then a little longer, three and a half, because I
Yeah,
think,
roughly that. Still 3 hours
yeah,
today.
yeah, the speed limit is a little higher now. I happen to know I just drove through Florida last weekend. Um, my speed limit for Florida and Florida's speed limit for Florida are 2 different numbers. I think it said 70. I think I was like 79 to 85 most of the
Well,
way. Knock on
the
wood, I didn't
speed
get a ticket.
the speed limit on I-10, which is right about where you see on the northern part of Florida, is about
Mhm.
70 miles an hour.
Yeah. I, drove from my home in North Georgia down to Vero Beach, so we drove down 75 and then took the Florida Turnpike over to the other side. Which I like that turnpike because there's, like, the little rest areas in the middle where you don't have to actually get off the road. You can just, like or not rest area, but there's a name for them, I'm sure, like oases, they're called in Illinois. I'm not sure what they're called in Florida, but
Mm,
to where you can get off in the middle of the road and they have food, they have a gas station, they have clean bathrooms, and you don't have to worry, like, about getting like, there's only one way to go. You can only get on and off. There's nowhere else to go.
mhm.
I like that a lot. Um, just a little endorsement of the Florida Turnpike, apparently. Totally worth the toll. Alright. So she gets carted off to Orlando. And at age 10 in Orlando, she gets caught throwing a cat off a three-story building.
Hmm.
As you may or maybe not, but a lot of people in the chat know because we've talked about it before, there's certain signs, to show somebody's mental state, that become serial killers or just killers in general. One of them is torturing animals at a young age. So this is what we're seeing here. Another one is wetting the bed till they're old enough to where they shouldn't be wetting the bed anymore, like, wetting the bed at a later age, um, and torturing animals. And the third one is setting fires. We don't have or we don't know of any bedwetting at a, you know, obviously when you're a toddler it happens, but past being potty trained, we don't have any of that or the setting fires. But this cat thing, she did not like cats. However, if you asked her as a child, she said she loved cats. Just like as a teenager, she said she loved kids. Kinda weird. She's throwing them off of
Mhm.
buildings. When the police questioned
Ye
her yeah, I know.
Yeah.
If anybody out there who's can hear my voice right now, if your child, if you catch them, at a young age setting fires or torturing animals, please take them to therapy immediately. Do not pass go. Do not collect $1,000,000 or $200, whatever Monopoly is, because these
Because
they're signs.
if they lose empathy for torturing animals like that, then they'll lose empathy for torturing and offing humans.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when the police questioned her about it, she said she was testing to see if the cat had 9 lives, and that she really liked cats and she wasn't trying to hurt the cat because she thought it had 9 lives. I don't know. So they end up taking, her to therapy, and they took Carol and Christine to therapy, whatever group home they were in Orlando, and the reason being is, because they knew that that Carol was molested, and then Christine's throwing cats off the building. Uh, you know, the therapist reports say that Christine is a compulsive liar, manipulative, and a kleptomaniac. So she's stealing, she's manipulating people, and she's lying. And this is at the age of 10.
Mhm.
Exactly. So at age 14, she moves back to Bluntstown. Bluntstown? Am I saying that right?
Bluntstown.
Blountstown or
Bluntstown.
Bluntstown?
Bluntstown. It's
Bluntstown,
pronounced
Bluntstown.
Bluntstown.
Okay.
I lived there for a good portion of my life.
It looks like a nice area as far
It's
as not being near a city, which is what I like.
well,
So
it's a hub between several cities in the area. It's a
mhm,
hub between Panama City, Tallahassee, Mariana, and Dothan.
yeah. It looks like
So
you could get
it's
to the
not a
beach
big
pretty
town,
quickly.
but yeah, well, not exactly quickly, but in Florida, you're no more than 5 or 6 miles from a body of water anyway, and there's lakes
Mhm.
all over the place.
Yeah, but aren't there alligators there? That's kinda scary to me.
Alligators are all over the state. I mean, they'll have signs posted up and even at Wakulla Springs, which is about an hour away from there. The gators
Mhm.
don't bother anybody. They stay
Okay.
on their side of the pond. We stay on our side of the pond.
I think it's just because it's something I'm not used to. Like, we have bears here and coyotes and stuff, and they don't really like the little black bears, you know? If I see them, I'm not really bothered by them because they don't really attack, but I think it's just because I didn't grow up around alligators that I kinda like, my heart beats a little faster when I see one, you know?
They're more scared of us than we are of them, but
Yeah,
uh, and I can in certain areas where we do share swimming spots, they tend to stay away from us for the most part unless you got something they want to eat,
that's good to hear.
like your dog.
Like yeah, Xena. Um, her little tail's wagging. I said her name. Um, I would be really worried about my pets there. Yeah, Xena or Ava. Well, I would be more worried about Ava because she's more curious. Xena just sort of, she just sort of sleeps all the time. So
Well, uh, if
she
you
sleeps and waits for people to get her snacks. That's it. That's her job. Um,
but you're more likely to hit a deer than anything else in Florida, so
oh, maybe I shouldn't be going 85 on the highway if there's deer. Was not
yeah, they're all over
aware.
the place.
All right, so she moves back to the town,
Bluntstown.
Bluntstown, at the age of 14, back in with her mom, who left her on a bench when she was like 4 years old. So I don't get that, but I guess she just wanted out of the group home, and that was an option to her. So she moves back to Bluntstown, and she's 14 years old at the time in 1977. So still at the age of 14, her mom forces her to marry a 20-year-old man.
That's just sick.
I I don't mind the age difference, but not 14. She's like
Yeah,
barely a woman. Like, you know, I
I
just
mean, she's probably just barely gotten into her first cycle,
mhm. Exactly. If she like if at all.
if
Yeah.
if at all. Yeah.
So that marriage did not last very long. It only lasted 6 weeks. And within those 6 weeks, she went to the hospital 2 times for abuse. Now, I don't know what type of abuse it was. There's not a whole lot of information. Like if you look up Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy, there is just stacks and stacks of information online, about, every little thing, about these serial killers. For Christine Falling, there is next to nothing online. I really had to dig deep to get this research done.
Yeah.
So I don't
I
know
mean, yeah,
what's
you've got all these famous serial killers, but very little is mentioned about lesser known one, like
mhm.
her or some others. I mean, they're not well documented.
Yeah, the one that I talked about last week, which was David Allen Gore, there was more information than Christine Falling, but still not a whole lot of information. Also a Florida serial killer. I think Florida is like breeding ground for serial killers. A lot of them come from there.
I
BlackHartKnight.
do
Did you
believe
know
Ted
that?
Bundy was I do believe Ted Bundy was roaming around the Florida at that time and was
He
gonna be
was.
stalking, the FSU sorority girls.
He was. I actually just listened to a podcast today while I was, grocery shopping about, Ted Bundy. That was where he went, like, the Florida's just calling to these people. They're drawn there, you know?
That's for
Um
sure.
Real quick, I'm gonna give Xena a milk bone from Smith W. And if number two can just make a note to put his name in the drawing, I would appreciate that so I don't have to stop and do it. But let's make Xena a little bigger. Maybe I'll recenter her camera too. Hey Xena. How adorable is she? She's the best dog ever. Will you give me a high five? Oh yeah, you gotta get up. High five. Good girl. I like keeping her around. She's a good one to have. People she's like the nicest dog ever, but don't tell the criminals that want to break in my house. She's like the sweetest dog ever. It's the other little one you got to be worried about. Yeah, this is a good one. Thank you very much, Smith. And like I said, you will be entered into the drawing for this time next month. All right, notes. I want to say hi to the 14 people watching over there on Rumble. Good to have you. And we also have 4 on Twitch. One more milk bone before I get back into the story from Sparky. She said, "Don't starve the doggo." Are you kidding me? Do you see this chunker over here? She has lost a little weight lately, but it's because I put her on a diet from all the milk bones. This is from Sparky. There you go. I appreciate that. And I think actually, all right, let me finish her childhood and then we'll take a quick commercial break and then we'll get into the part where you come in. So she goes to the hospital twice. I don't know what kind of injuries. It just said it was from abuse. Um, I don't even know if she was abused at all or if this was just an excuse to get out of this thing because it turns out later she has Munchausen syndrome. So she could have just been making that up. I'm not sure. She is a
Okay.
manipulative liar diagnosed.
Now, according to your notes, she had been in an emergency room over there like 50 times. Now, believe it or
Yes.
not, Bluntstown does have a hospital. It's not like a lot of small towns
Hmm.
that send you off to another town for an emergency. It does have its own hospital, and I was born there, so they don't do uh, that. I mean, they don't deliver babies anymore. They send them those cases to Tallahassee now.
Yeah, that one of the victims ends up going to a hospital in Tallahassee. So, and that's not too far away, is it, Tallahassee?
An hour east of the
Bring up the map.
Bluntstown.
So
It
yeah,
only
that's not too bad.
you take Highway 20 from Bluntstown, which is their main road, and you will end up in Tallahassee in about an hour.
Okay. So yeah, not too far. So okay, so here's the situation. She's 14 years old. She's forced to marry this 20-year-old who, according to her, is abusing her. She goes to the hospital twice. Then 6 weeks after the wedding date, she picks up a 20-pound stereo system and drops it on his head while he's asleep.
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah. And I know we're about the same age. You remember how stereo systems used to be back then.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I'm.
S
They're not nearly as bad these days, but still.
yeah,
Yeah.
he he could have died from that. Like, they used to be, like, big, heavy equipment. So
Yeah.
I'm I'm glad that he didn't get too hurt, although if he was abusing her, then maybe he deserved it. I the part where she's diagnosed as a manipulative liar makes me not wanna believe anything she says, you know?
Yeah.
But I also don't wanna victim blame. So I'm kind of walking that thin line of if she was abused, then he deserved the stereo
Yeah.
to the head, I guess.
Well, she had a hard life, but she doesn't she's it's not necessary for her to retaliate against everybody else, including, well,
Yeah.
the young of the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So between 1978 and 1980, so just after this marriage ended, she, as you mentioned, has 50 hospital/emergency room visits. The doctors have no idea what's wrong with her. They run all of the tests, they do all of the things, and she's not diagnosed with anything. Like she would go in for like a rash that one of the documents said the doctor thought that she was like causing it herself, but they couldn't diagnose her with anything.
Psychosomatic or something like that?
They said she was diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome, which is similar to Munchausen by proxy. Munchausen by proxy is when you make somebody who you're
Yeah.
in care of sick, and then Munchausen is when you make up illnesses for yourself, and
Yeah, I've
so
seen that plenty of times before. I
mhm. Munchausen is a psychological condition where someone pretends to be ill or deliberately produces symptoms of illness in themselves. Their main intention is to assume the sick role so that people will care for them, and then they are the center of attention. Now, I could see why she's trying to eat these bones, but it's like, I think it's really loud, or it sounds really loud to me when she does. So I think the fact that she was never cared for as a child may have brought this on. So she never had any um, mother figure in her life. Her mother never took care of her. Her father did his best, obviously, but she was never the one who was being taken care of. She always had to take care of other people. She was the one taking care of her little brothers, for instance. So I think this, if Christine's crimes ended at Munchausen, like pretending to be sick, I would totally understand that, is what I'm trying to say.
All right.
But as you and I both know, that's not where it ends. Real
Because it's
quick,
about to hit the fan.
it's about to hit the fan, but I want to do my little commercial. I try to do one commercial an episode because I forget. But let me do my little commercial thing, and then we'll get into when the stuff is gonna it's really gonna hit the fan. You guys are gonna be flabbergasted. So, this program is brought to you by nobody but me because nobody will sponsor this stuff. If you want to support the show, you can do all of the things like the super chats or the Rumble rants or the buy me a coffee. The QR code's on the screen, by the way. Everything is KDZ. So buymeacoffee.com/KDZ or I'm KDZ over on Rumble. I'm on Twitch. I'm on D Live. I'm on Odyssey. I'm obviously on YouTube, which is where most of you are right now. If you would like to go to the merch store, that is at kdz.com. And right now, today is the last day. And I keep saying that, but today I'm really going to do it. Today is the last day for discount code Xena10 in the merch store. So you can get any of the merchandise if you do Xena10. I keep forgetting to deactivate the code. I was only supposed to run till the end of the month, and it's already the 5th, and I haven't deactivated it. So I'm not going to deactivate it till midnight tonight. Use discount code Xena10 at checkout. You can get all of the things, including I have sweatshirts, I have doggy bandanas that say True Crime with Xena featuring KDZ, because I know that each and every one of you are actually here to see Xena and not me. You make it very clear every week. So Xena has her own line of merchandise. We have Overruled merchandise. We have Crimeland merchandise. Also on kdz.com, you can get any of Stephen Ignoramus's merchandise. That's all up there now too. So if you are a fan of Stephen's, he's one of my best friends, by the way. I don't know if you know who he is, but you can get his merchandise also at kdz.com. And now back to the program. Let me turn all of this stuff off. So don't forget, discount code Xena10 will work till the end of the day today if you want any of the things. Also, let me know in the chat if you do purchase something. I'll know after the show because I get the orders, obviously. But let me know and I'll give Xena a milk bone as well. Oh, real quick before I forget, I know I showed you the Christmas ornaments already, but Christmas is just around the corner. And for the low price of $11.88, you can get a Overruled Christmas ornament, and it also has a magnet on the back of it, so you can put it on your refrigerator like a magnet too. Okay. That wasn't such a bad commercial, was it?
Oh, it wasn't that bad.
I try to keep it short. I only do it once an episode. Okay, now my notes they're over here. I have too many screens. Okay, here's where it gets crazy, guys. This is gonna get nuts. So
and this is where I end up getting involved before the end of this. But right at your notes, it's right before she moved to Lakeland.
Yeah. So February 25th, 1980. Christine is out. She's got the divorce. She needs to make a little money. She's a teenager at this time. I believe she's 15 or 16. And she's like, how can a teenage girl in the 80s make a little money? She decides, "Oh, I'm gonna babysit," right? That's a good idea. I babysat as a kid. I don't know, have you ever done any babysitting
No, I
out
have
there?
not.
A lot of people, even like my brothers and stuff would too, like for other people in the church or whatever. But, I did a lot of babysitting as a kid, and even in, adulthood, I was a nanny for 4 kids for a little while, about a year. So taking care of children is just something I think that young women do to make a little extra money, you know? She gets a job babysitting Cassidy Johnson. Cassidy was 2 years old at the time, and Christine was hired to babysit Cassidy's several times. And then on February 25th, 1980, when Cassidy's parents come home, Christine informed them. She's like, "Oh, by the way, Cassie over here fell from her crib. So you might want to keep an eye on her." So Cassidy is like passed out, but she's got her tucked into the crib as if she's just sleeping. So immediately, Cassidy's parents rush her to the hospital, and the hospital takes a look at her. She gets diagnosed with encephalitis. Encephalitis is an inflammation of the brain, and
Yeah,
Cassidy ended
severe
up
brain injury right there, definitely.
severe brain injury, like, not just like, you would have to like, hit your head really hard, um, to have this sort of injury, uh, but in a two-year-old, I could see it happening if they had, like, hardwood floors or concrete floors. I can't s I'm not a doctor. I mean, you guys know this, I'm not a doctor, but the doctors were a little, stumped by this as well. Cassidy ends up dying 2 days later. The autopsy listed the cause of death as a blunt force trauma to the skull, which lines up with the story of her falling out of her crib, right? So most of the doctors and the staff are like, and even the parents are like, oh, there's no way Christine did this on purpose, right? Like, you wouldn't think that your teenage babysitter killed your child on purpose. Like, that's the last thing that you would want to think happened. There was one attending physician that did not believe Christine and recommended in a handwritten note to the police to investigate her. However, this note was lost somewhere and the case was closed. They never looked any further into it. This
Yeah.
is this is what I'm saying about victims coming forward. This could have been stopped right then. If that doctor pushed a little harder or the police listened a little better or even investigated it. They never even questioned her about it. Like, there was nothing in this case, and the two-year-old is dead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
immediately after, you'll notice this pattern too. As soon as somebody dies in this woman's life, or this girl's life, I should say, she's a teenager. She ends up moving. So
Well,
she
oh, this is where I come in because I was supposed to be babysat by her immediately after this that couple ended up dying. When
Mhm,
this previous child ended up dying. See, what happened was I was about a year old at the time.
mhm,
My parents were needing a babysitter. They asked
mhm,
around. Somebody recommended Christine Falling, and so they interviewed her and let her come in the house. They talked to her and everything like that,
yeah,
and they set up a date so my parents could go out and have a good time. And well, she ended up canceling, and that's when she moved to Lakeland. And as a result of her canceling, they ended up getting my grandmother, who was living on the other side of town, to babysit me for that night.
mhm.
So I ended up getting lucky.
Very lucky. Very, because you never know, and like I said, she didn't kill every single person she babysat, but it was a lot. It was a lot of kids she babysat ended up dead.
Yeah.
So like I said to you before we went live, thank goodness I'm not speaking to your ghost right now, and you never actually were, thrown from the crib or wherever or off a two-story roof like
Yeah.
that cat or something like that.
Now
There's or smothered. There was some that are coming up here that she would just, like, press pillows onto these kids' faces, you know?
I was never told about that by my parents, and, my mother died in 1992. My parents had got married in 1979. She died in 70 I'm sorry, in 92,
Mhm.
and my dad got remarried in 2008,
Yeah.
or sorry, 2006, somewhere in that, line, and, I found out about it through my grandmother who told me about it roughly about 2004-ish, and I researched the case myself and
Okay.
like, wow,
So
the
you probably found what I found where there's just not as much information as some of the
yeah,
other. So
what
tell
you
me how this
found
I wanna know how this conversation goes. So you're hanging out with Mima, right? And she just says, "Hey, by the way, uh"
it was not by the way, we were watching something on TV about Ted Bundy
Okay.
and how he had hit Florida State University, and she was sitting right next to me, and I was like and she said mentioned that, "Oh, yeah, that reminds me, did your dad ever tell you about the serial killer that, we encountered?" Like, "No."
Yikes.
"Oh, he didn't? Well, I'll
Wow.
go ahead and tell you." And so she tells me about and she doesn't give me the name, she
Mhm.
just says that your parents ended up almost leaving you in the hands of a serial killer. And so, we didn't have internet at her house, so I walked
Mhm.
down the library the next day,
Yeah.
and I, researched I Googled, uh, baby murders in Blountstown, Florida,
Mhm.
1981, and came up and the only thing that came up was her.
Yeah.
And so I dived right into her past, and I saw and she had told me that that, she had gotten a job as a live-in housekeeper or something like that. That was part of the story that I found and everything
Mhm.
like that. Now, at one point, I mean, I didn't talk to my dad for about it for a very long time because, a couple of years after this, I had a falling out with my, dad. I didn't talk to him for a few years.
Mhm.
And then at Thanksgiving in 2010, I think it was,
Mhm.
I we were all having a chat, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, Dad, I just got a question for you. Did you happen to leave me in the hands of a serial killer, or try almost do that?"
Yeah.
He looked at me, was like, "Where did you hear that at?" I was like, "Well, Grandma told me a number of years ago about it. I just want to know if it's true." And before he could say anything about it, my stepmother, because by this
Mhm.
time my dad had gotten remarried, was
Yeah.
like, did you almost leave your son in the hands of a
Wow.
killer?" And my dad, like, had his voice kind of turned childlike at this point.
Mhm.
He was like, "Well, we didn't know it at the time."
Nobody knew. How could you possibly? First of all, serial killers like to blend in. Most of them do, where they just you every time somebody gets arrested for serial killing or whatever, all of their neighbors are like, "Oh, he seemed like such a normal guy. Oh, see, she seemed like just a nice girl." Nobody knows because of the psychological stuff going on. They're really good at blending in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and at the time that I had asked my dad, I was working at the Mariana Walmart, which is near Bluntstown, and
Mhm.
so I started asking the coworkers who were 50 years and above, who had lived in the area, if they had ever heard of Christine Falling,
Yeah.
and, well, every one of them had heard about Christine Falling, and, well, she didn't have a very good reputation.
I bet. She's just leaving a wake of dead children in her path.
I mean,
So
I just mentioned the name, and one of them was like, "Is that baby killer still rotting in prison?"
as a matter of fact, she is. We'll get to that. She had a parole hearing, but, ooh, that didn't go well
Yeah.
for her. So you were in, you said Bluntstown, right?
Yeah.
So she moves to
Yeah.
Lakeland after this is the first one is in Blunt's. Am I saying
Bluntstown.
Bluntsville? Okay, I keep wanting to say Bluntsville, and then I'm second guessing myself. Bluntstown. I'll get it right. So in June of 1980, she's hired to babysit 4-year-old Jeffrey Davis. Now, Jeffrey dies in her care. The autopsy comes back to myocarditis, which is a heart condition. It's rarely fatal, but it's a heart condition. That's what's listed as the cause of death. Myocarditis. You can tell I'm not a doctor because I can't say any of these medical terms. Myocarditis is the inflammation of the myocardium, which is the heart muscle. So that was just ruled a natural death, I guess. It's also a symptom of being smothered is you get the
Mhm.
internal injuries. So Jeffrey, the 4-year-old, obviously a few days later, there's a funeral. And Christine is hired to babysit Jeffrey's cousin, 2-year-old Joseph Spring. Well, Joseph's parents go to Jeffrey's funeral. So same family, which is just bonkers to me. Imagine the tragedy in these people's life. Just
Mhm.
I just the heartache and the I don't know. So she's hired to babysit Joseph while the parents are at their nephew Jeffrey's funeral, and this one gets an autopsy as well. A lot of times when children die, they do an autopsy because they need to figure out what happened because it's not usual for a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old to just drop dead, right? It's more common in infants under a year old, like SIDS and stuff like that. Sometimes they don't do an autopsy, or I don't know if that's true or not. I'm making stuff up now, but sometimes they don't do, like, it's more common, I should say, for an infant to die for unknown reasons than it is for a 2 or 4. Like, once they're 2 or 4, they're kinda past that stage of just dropping dead for no reason. So the autopsy for Joseph comes back as a viral infection that caused the death. And at that time, the medical staff say, "Oh, well, maybe Jeffrey had the same viral infection, and that's why he died too." So these 2 are just kinda swept under the rug. But I feel so bad for Jeffrey and Joseph's family just to lose 2 children back to like, within days of
Uh-huh.
each other, right?
Right.
Horrible. Now, back to the MO of her just skipping town as soon as this happens. She immediately after this happens moves back to Perry, Florida. So this was in Lakeland, and I'm not showing my screen. So this was this was in Lakeland down here. So it's like in between Lakeland's in between Orlando and Tampa, which is I think the furthest away. So the farthest away from the towns that she was in is Bluntstown and Lakeland are 5 hours apart, give or take, probably about 6 back in those days. But as you can see, all of these cities from Lakeland, Orlando, Perry, Bluntstown, they're all in this area of Florida there on the little the crook, the elbow there.
Oh, the
So she's
Panhandle.
well, the Panhandle isn't the Panhandle up here?
Wait. Oh, the Big Bend. Excuse me. It's called the Big Bend.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's just in this corridor right here, all of these
Uh,
little towns in here.
yeah, it's called the Big Bend.
The Big
So,
Bend. I kinda like the elbow better. I'm gonna make up my own name for stuff. So she goes back to Perry, which is here. And while she's in Perry, she's having a difficult time finding babysitter gigs. I
gee, I
wonder
wonder
why.
why.
Yeah, so she's like, how am I gonna make money if people won't hire me to babysit their children?" She ends up getting a job as a nursing assistant slash housekeeper to a gentleman named William Swindle. Real quick, I want to point out that her name when she was born was Slaughter, and she's killing cats. She's slaughtering cats, and now her name's Falling, and these children are dying from falling out of their cribs. Like, I see a pattern here. I'm recognizing a pattern here. Uh, you know, just saying. So she gets a job caring for this elderly gentleman, William Swindle. I'm
Swindle.
I'm hoping he wasn't a swindler.
I hope so too.
I don't think he was. There's nothing about that in any of the papers or paperwork or stuff online that I found. But he ends up the first day on the job. So she's like an in-home nursing assistant, like to give him his medicine, to feed him. My mom just had a surgery where I was at her house taking care of her, so I kind of have an idea of what this is like when there's not mom, if you're watching, I'm not saying you're elderly, but you're a little elderly. But just making sure that the correct medicine is being taken, that there's enough calories going in. My mom doesn't like to eat very much, so I need to make sure she's eating, things like that. First day on the job, William Swindler dies in his kitchen.
Hmm.
Curious is all I'm saying. Very curious, Christine.
Interesting how that so many people in her care have a
Mhm.
mysterious accident.
Exactly. Well, and no autopsy is done on this one because he's a 77-year-old man who's in poor health, obviously, because he needed a nursing assistant and housekeeper. So he's obviously not, you know, a spring chicken anymore. So
Right.
exactly. So they just chalk it up to old age. That's it. He's gone. Uh, the interview that she does after she's caught, she never admits to this one. She doesn't. She just says, "Yeah, he just died," like as if she's got this dark cloud following her around where people are just dying in her wake. So she never admits to the Joseph and Jeffrey, the two children that died. She never admits to those ones, and she never admits to William Swindle. But it's more likely than not, in my opinion, allegedly, that she also killed these 3 people. I think I put enough caveats on there not to get in trouble. It's September 1981. She's, back in Bluntsville from Paris.
Town.
Bluntstown. I did it again. Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel bad because it's like where you're from. If it was just a random town that you had no relation to, I wouldn't feel as bad.
Well, I don't live
Bluntstown.
there anymore. I mean,
Yeah, but
it's kind of my
still,
ancestral home.
yeah, your hometown has, like, some sort of nostalgic value to you, I would assume. It does,
My
my
great
hometown does.
my great grandfather was mayor of that town, and
Oh,
ended up a lot of the building projects you still see around were a result of him during the Great Depression when the FDR was doing the New Deal. So he
yeah.
took some of that money and built a lot of Bluntstown up.
That's really interesting. So I love small town sort of life, small town living, and it's really kinda cool that you said your grandfather was the mayor?
Great grandfather.
Your great-grandfather. Yeah.
My grandmother, the one I was talking about, her father.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so she moves back in September of 1981, and she's hanging out with her older half-sister, Carol, and she's, running errands with Carol, and Carol's daughter, Jennifer Daniels is the child's name, is in the car, like in her car seat or whatever, and they're running errands, and Jennifer falls asleep. She's 8 months old, and as you know, and I know, and probably everybody listening knows, when the baby's asleep, you let them sleep because otherwise an 8-month-old is just going to cry. So she says, "Hey, Christine, I need to run into the grocery store here for a minute and pick up a few things. Could you just hang out in the car in the probably the Winn-Dixie, I would assume, in that area of the country? I'm making up the store name, by the way. I'm going to run into the Winn-Dixie and pick up a few things for dinner. Just hang out here with Jennifer."
Actually actually, if it had been in Bloodstown, it'd been the Piggly Wiggly right on Main Street.
Okay, Piggly Wiggly. It probably was. See, that's why I have you here. You know these things. So she runs into the Piggly Wiggly, which is a much more fun name to say, by the way, than Winn-Dixie. Um, she runs into the
That particular store doesn't exist anymore over there. The original building no longer exists. The Piggly Wiggly has been moved to another town. Blah blah blah.
When I was a kid, I remember, I grew up in Chicago, but my grandparents lived here in Georgia, in Decatur, Georgia, actually, just outside of Atlanta. And I can remember as a kid going to the Piggly Wiggly, and I would always call it the Piggle Wiggle. And still to this day, sometimes my family makes fun of me for calling it the Piggle Wiggle. But that's where my grandparents used to shop, as the Piggly Wiggly. The Piggle Wiggle.
We've also got Hoggly Wogglies around here as well.
do you Hoggly Wogglies and the Piggle Wiggles? I think Piggle Wiggle's a better name. It's kind of cute. I could see, like, I have a marketing degree, so I can see in my head, like, the marketing for a store named the Piggle Wiggle would be kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So she's running errands. Baby Jennifer, 8 months old, is asleep in her car seat. "Hey, Christine, hang out in the car. I'm going to go get stuff for dinner." She's out of the car for no more than 15 minutes, and she comes back and Jennifer is dead. Her 8-month-old baby, who also, by the way, is Christine's niece, is dead in her car seat. So she has no care at all. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger, it doesn't matter if it's her literal blood family. She just smothers babies. This is what she's compelled to do. This just breaks my heart so much because it's not like hiring a babysitter that you don't know. This is her sister. Her
Yeah.
sister killed her child. Like, that's gotta put a I don't know. I just couldn't even imagine my brother or my sister doing something like that to my child. Like, how do you forgive that? You can't.
I
There's
don't
no
think you
way.
can.
There's no way. So, sorry, this one's hitting me a little hard, just because it's family. The death certificate listed Jennifer's death as SIDS, which is sudden infant death
Infant
syndrome.
death syndrome.
And that's a term used to describe the sudden death of a baby younger than 1 year of age that has no known cause. Even after there's a full investigation, there's still not a known cause. So that's what SIDS is. And it happens less now, I think, than it did back then, but it still happens a lot. So as she does, she moves back to Bluntstown. So, or was she already in Bluntstown? Maybe she didn't
He's
move
probably
after this
already,
one. Yeah.
but maybe she was still in Bloodstown at the time.
Yeah,
I don't
she was
know.
still in Bluntstown. So this next one, this is where they get her. So we have something to cheer for now, BlackHartKnight. We have something to cheer
Yeah.
for. Now, it's hard to say that because, like, another kid's gonna die, but this is how they catch her, so it is a good thing. Maybe not cheer for it. Maybe I misspoke when I said that. So this is July 2nd, 1982. This is all of
Wow.
these things that I'm
I know
talking
where I'm
about.
at that time. I'm not living in Bloodstown at that particular time.
Where were you?
I was living up in Leavenworth, Kansas at that particular time with my
Okay.
parents. Of course, I'm 2 years old, so I gotta be living with my parents, and my sister's born around that time.
Yeah.
So we were living in Leavenworth, Kansas because my mother's parents lived up in the area.
Okay.
So we lived near the prison.
So do you like, I mean, have you lived in Florida as an adult, or have you just been in Kansas the rest of the time?
In '83, we moved back to Florida. We moved to Palaca, Florida,
I've never even
which
heard
is
of that.
it's on the west coast of Florida.
Okay.
If you head straight west from Bluntstown on the map,
Mhm.
you'll find it. Sorry, not
Okay.
west, but east. Straight west. Sorry, east from Bluntstown.
Alright. So up around oh, I'm not showing my thing. Me looking at a map, not showing anybody else.
Yeah, head east on the map.
Is this it? You said
Palaca.
oh, Palaca.
It's farther east,
Let's type
all the
it
way
in.
almost to the coast. Almost
How
the coast.
how do you spell it? P
I don't remember. Just
Pa Palaca.
yeah, Palaca.
Alright. Here we go. Oh, yeah, look at that. Palaca. So south of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Or as I
And
like
then
to
we
call
moved
it,
back.
Jayville.
And then we moved back to the Tallahassee area after about 84, 85, or something like that.
So you were
But
just all up in this area the same time that this murderous wench was all up in this area.
yeah, yeah.
Jeez Louise, you are so lucky, man.
Definitely.
So lucky.
But in 1982, I was up in Kansas.
Okay.
So I was
So
far away from this winch.
yeah, thank goodness for that. Oh, so that's what I was saying is all of these like we just went over 5 different deaths were all within a 2-year period. So it was just like bam, 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 one after another. It's usually serial killers, it's spread out a little more. It's like one here, one there, but this is just right back to back to back. All of this, she's 17 years old when this last one happens. So she's
Mhm.
literally, quite literally a teenager when all of this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So July
she
sorry, go
spent
ahead.
most of her life in prison because of this.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. For
Mhm.
definitely. It's especially now, I am all about forgiveness, and I do have, more forgiveness for somebody who makes a mistake when they're, underage or when their brains aren't quite developed yet, that sort of thing. However, because of the mental issues that we talked about earlier in the show, we talked about her upbringing and her mental issues, and she was born kind of slow according to the records, and then also at age 10 she had all those diagnoses with the personality disorders and things like that. I think probably the best place for her is in a prison, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So Travis Coleman was 2 years old in 1982, in July of 1982, and Travis had just been released from the hospital after suffering from pneumonia and had a clean bill of health. So he gets released from the hospital, the kid gets sick, he gets better, and released from the hospital, and Christine was hired to babysit Travis because when his parents came home from spending all those days in the hospital, they decided, kids better, perfectly healthy. We need a night out. We need a little break. So they were just going to go out for the evening and have dinner or go to a friend's house or something like that to have a little break from sitting in the hospital for a week. They were in the hospital for a week with him. This was a mistake, and I'm sure you know why.
Mhm.
When the parents came home, Travis was already dead. This time, though, these parents, true heroes, because they didn't just take the old, "Oh, he fell from his crib," or, "Oh, he's got a viral infection," or whatever. They wanted full investigation. Let me
Good on
turn that
them.
off. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, they said, "We know that he had a clean bill of health. We know that he was perfectly healthy." The doctor said, it was fine. The p Yeah, thank God that they did. The autopsy revealed that Travis died from internal injuries caused by manual suffocation. So apparently, what I learned is that when you are actually suffocated, that stuff happens in your internal injuries that they can see on autopsies. Like, I always thought that when you suffocate somebody, there's really no evidence, but there's no external evidence. There's not, if somebody gets strangled, you get bruises on your neck or something like that, right? Um, but if you suffocate somebody, stuff happens like the myocarditis, the inflammation around the heart and lungs is visible. So, bam, hammer drops on Christine. They bring her into the police station for a police interview, and she confessed almost immediately to not only killing Travis, but to killing Cassidy, which and to killing Jennifer. Remember, Cassidy was the first child that she killed, and Jennifer Daniels was her niece, the one that she killed in the car at the Piggle Wiggle. So she confesses to 3. There's 3 others that we did talk about that allegedly, in my opinion, she also killed the older gentleman, William, and the cousins, Jeffrey and Joseph. So I really think that she's killed 6 people. What do you think?
Definitely. I mean, I that all that yeah, swindle. I definitely think that it's my opinion that she killed him.
Mhm.
But seeing as how no autopsy was done and it's far too late to do one now, she'll get
Yeah.
away with that one.
Yeah.
I mean, to mysteriously die on the first day. Give me
Mhm.
a break.
Exactly. Exactly. So, y
And an
yeah,
older
the
man is going to be
very first day. Exactly.
and an older man is not going to put up as much of a fight as a man in his prime.
Yeah, well, she could have just come up behind him and, like, put a pillow over his face or something, and they
Hmm.
didn't do any autopsy or any sort of examination at all. The paramedics came and they took him away and they had a funeral and that's it. End of story, right? When somebody that age dies and they're already in poor health, a lot of times that happens.
Hmm.
Um, in her police interview, she says that she heard voices in her head telling her to kill the baby, and that's why she did it. She
I
admitted
wonder
to
what voices that she heard when she was holding me, if she was holding me at all.
Yikes. I didn't even think of that because she was at your house, and I bet, like, if they were interviewing her to babysit, I bet she was holding you and playing with you because your parents would wanna see how she, acted
Yeah.
with you, right? This
Yeah.
Oh, I just got, like, goosebumps all over BlackHartKnight. She was holding you. This
Most likely,
murderous
yes.
this oh my goodness. Yeah, I bet she was. I bet she was.
But
Holy
I'm
cow.
glad she canceled.
I am so glad she canceled too. I mean, not for William Swindle's sake, but for your sake for sure, right?
Yeah, really.
Um, Hopefully William had led a great life up until then, and he is in the arms of God right now, and you're here talking to me, which is amazing. She
Mhm.
admitted to suffocating the children with pillows and blankets, the 3 that she admitted to. So that's Cassidy, Jennifer, Daniels, and Travis Coleman. And remember that Joseph, the cousin of Jeffrey, had the same, internal injuries as Travis. So that's why I really think she killed those kids too, because of the myocarditis, which is a sign of manual suffocation. So Falling was sentenced to life in prison in December of 1982, but her confession prevented her from getting the death penalty, which it takes them so long to put people to death anyway. So she would probably, even if she got the death sentence, I would assume she'd probably still be alive right now, right?
No, not very likely. They call it the Ted Bundy around the same time. It only took 10 years for him.
Yeah, I guess that's probably now that that happens, that, um, it takes them so long. There's so many, like, appeals and back and forth with the courts and things like, and it also depends on the state. Florida's kinda got a little express lane in there for executions. Like, they're one of those states that they're not gonna drag it out. Like, technically, the death penalty is still in effect in California, but they haven't put somebody to death there in, like, 20 years, you know?
Mhm.
So, let me read a little bit of this article. It says, "Killer babysitter will stay behind bars." This was from 2017. It says, "Longtime locals might remember the case of a babysitter in Bluntstown who confessed to killing children. After serving 25 years, she is now eligible for parole. But the woman dubbed the killer babysitter is staying behind bars." Christine Falling was just 19 years old when she pled guilty to killing 3 children. In exchange, the state didn't pursue charges for the other 2 kids who died in her care and did not seek the death penalty. The charges may never have been filed if she had not confessed. This is quoted. "I choked her till she quit breathing, and then she turned purple," Falling said. As a child, Falling reportedly strangled or dropped cats from high places to test their 9 lives. Her stepfather, Jesse Falling, who adopted her at the age of 4, was bewildered. Now, this is the same Jesse who, um, molested her older sister, so I don't even know why they're even still talking to him.
Yeah,
Same
really.
same guy. Uh, "Because she was a lover of children, I say that," he said. Also, Falling also later confessed. Oh, she did end up confessing to, maybe I should have read this article ahead of time. Falling later also confessed to killing a 70-year-old man on her first day on the job as his housekeeper. By law, Falling remains eligible for parole, but prosecutors told the review panel that the so-called babysitter from hell deserved no mercy. I agree. This woman killed 5 babies from the age of 2 months to 4 years old. She says she did it in the way she saw on TV. She says she doesn't know why she did it. Sometimes they cried and they made her mad. One time she said she just felt the urge, said Joy Powell, an assistant state attorney in Perry. No one showed up on Falling's behalf at her parole hearing Wednesday. The panel showed no mercy. Christine Falling's presumptive release date is 2254,
Mm.
likely long after she dies. Falling gets another hearing in
Nice.
yeah, Falling gets another hearing in 7 years, which is actually next year because this was in 2017. But the question asked across the country in the wake of the deaths, "Can you trust your babysitter?" is as relevant today as it was 25 years ago. So that's kinda crazy. Definitely don't trust the babysitter. Definitely um, get recommendations, do background
Definitely.
checks. I know it costs money to do background checks, but children is God's greatest gift to us, so you need to keep them safe at all costs.
Mm.
I do have a little picture of her now, from her Department of Corrections records. She's not looking so swell, just saying.
I wonder if she's in general population or if she's in protective custody,
Mhm.
because I doubt any of the women would be merciful on her if they shared cells.
Hmm, that's true. I don't think it says on here. It just says currently incarcerated. So it does not say if she's in general population or, but I know that if she felt in danger, I've interviewed people who've been in prison before. One of them, uh, was actually a murderer that is out, served him ti his time was out, and he was telling me that, when people felt unsafe and when we were talking about it, he was talking about, like, obviously a male prison and sex offenders, like rapists and stuff, but he said that they would do things to purposely get themselves in trouble so they could be isolated. So, I'm sure women probably do the same thing, right?
Probably.
Yeah. So that's the story of Christine falling. I what do you guys think in the chat? Let me know.
Me
Does that
personally, I
sorry.
would. I mean, years ago, I thought about this when I was going to FSU.
Mhm,
Because there were criminology majors who were getting interviews with people in prison that were fairly well known.
mm,
I was like, I thought about getting an interview with her at some point, but never really followed through with it. I
oh,
because
yeah.
be like, I'm the one that got away.
That would be very interesting. If you do wanna do that, I will come down and go visit her in the prison with you, and, we can see if they'll let us record it. We can make a whole documentary about it.
Mhm.
I think we're gonna do a collab on this. We'll do a documentary together. How about that?
That could be a consideration right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we go, Erica donated again, so we have to give Xena a treat. But she's not in her spot, so I don't know if she deserves one. Come here, Xena. Come on. Come on. Say hi. I know you want that. I know you
Oh,
want
what a cute little girl.
co come on. Come on. Alright, say hi to the people, and here's your that's from Erica. There you go. I know, I got no more. Hop down. Thank you. Um, so that's it. That's the show. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this crazy woman?
No, I pretty much covered it on my end.
I
I
really appreciate you joining me today, and I appreciate you sharing your story with me. It was just, um, like I said at the beginning of the show, when you emailed me, and I had never heard of this woman before you emailed me about it, but I just got goosebumps everywhere just thinking how close of a call that was because you were a baby, she was killing babies, you know? Um and I'm so glad
yeah.
that you're okay and you're alive and well and doing good things. If you guys don't know, check out BlackHartKnight's channel. It's linked down in the description below. Did you wanna promote anything else? Tell us how tell the people where they can find you.
Well, basically, I make fun of First Amendment auditors and sovereign citizens and everything like that. Point
Mhm.
out their flaws. If I like with the sovereign citizens, I will definitely take the extra mile and point out the laws that they tend to cherry pick because
True.
that's what they do. They'll cherry pick everything like that,
Mhm.
and well, quite often they get roasted in court because of their stupidity.
They sure do, and you are really good at making fun of them. If you like to laugh at stupidity, definitely check out Knight's channel. It's a good time. I like your long videos, but I especially enjoy when I'm, you know, wasting time at work and scrolling through the shorts when one of your shorts comes up because it always makes me laugh, and sometimes it makes me laugh out loud while I'm at work and not supposed to be watching YouTube videos.
Mm.
Um, but it always warms my heart when somebody I know makes me laugh at work. So so you've done that to me on several occasions, by the way.
Well,
Check
glad I
out
could do
his
that for you.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, definitely check out Blackheart Night. Coming up Friday, there's gonna be an episode of Friday Night Crime at 7 o'clock. Number 2 will be joining me, and we're gonna talk about all of the things that people send me at my Discord. If you would like to send me anything, my email address is, on my channel. You can email me, you can send me things on Discord, any current news stories or even retro. I've been getting into some retro news stories lately too. So anything that you think is interesting, feel free to send me. Thank you very much to everybody who came today and hung out with us. Next Sunday, 4:30, Miss Mandy 777 is coming on to talk about a story that was near and dear to her heart, and it is about my dry erase board is up there. It's about a young woman named Zahara Baker who was killed in a small town where she's from. So
Hmm.
that should be interesting. I like having somebody on who has a personal connection to the stories. There's so many that I feel personally connected to. For instance, I grew up less than a mile from John Wayne Gacy. I haven't covered him on my channel yet because everybody's covered him, but every time I think of John Wayne Gacy, it's just he was so close to where I lived, and also he was killing young men who are the same ages as my older brother, who you may know, he's in the chat, his name's News Now Enemy. So he was killing young men that were in the same age group as him and my male cousins, and literally my male cousins grew up, 1 block away, like 1 street over and 1 block over is where they grew up. So it's just thank goodness. Same as for your story. Thank goodness that they weren't the ones that these crazy people got, you know?
Mhm.
All right, that's the show. Thanks for coming, everybody. I will see you Friday, 7 o'clock, Friday Night Crime. That's the next time I will see you. And I should have my stuff ready to play the outro, but I will see you all on Friday. Bye, everybody.